Hello, uh, Daniel Weber again. I'm just building on some of the thoughts that came from the prior seminar, ramblings rather, on that. Talked about this paradigm shift that's occurring. This, I think, is pretty central, and I'd love to be able to wrap my head around it, which I struggle with. I think it's possible. I mentioned in some prior webinars that the idea of contradiction, that Western people want to synthesize. They want to take these ideas, this Hegelian, or I don't remember which philosopher, the concept of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, that we build these things with the tension between this creates a higher reality. But that's not a paradigm shift. That is actually an amalgamation of two systems into a hybrid. Contradiction means you're living, in fact, in two realities simultaneously. That one is difficult. And as I said earlier, many Eastern cultures are much more comfortable with the concept of uh, contradiction than Western people. We want to get to the point, we want to resolve the tension. But sometimes the tension is really an important thing. That's what provokes real growth, the tension between these two realities. And anybody who's ever been in an intimate relationship knows that. Anybody who's raised independently thinking children knows that. You enter into negotiations with somebody who has a different reality. A really evolving relationship is one where we respect each other in those differences, complement where we can, support each other's independence. But again, that's a big ask if you're not particularly secure. To be able to let go is hard. Same thing with children. We want to control them and train them to be whatever we want to. We have our cultural meme is in regard to what we think children should do, but we, train the life out of them. The concept of independent thinking is not supported. So the idea of contradiction is important. Looking at the world today, simplistically, granted, we have conservatives, and to conserve is a really great thing. It is fundamental to human culture that we conserve. We store grain away for famines and so forth like that. So the conservation, and particularly today, is usually revolved around local communities, small groups, churches. A lot of the parts of America that are associated with conservatism are deeply religious, uh, locally agriculture in many ways, or low levels of industry, small town environments. So this is for these people, this is the reality. Belonging, following the rules, God's law, the rules of the country as they interpret them, unfortunately, but the laws of the country. And this is good. There's nothing wrong with it. This is actually a very healthy part of society. And then on the other hand, we have what we would call the globals, people who live in New York or in California, that their society is much larger. Their connections are not as homogeneous as the connections. So in Silicon Valley, you may have people working together, and there's people of color, and there's women in positions of power, and there's Muslims and Hindus and Christians and atheists, and everybody's. We know that the richness of diversity is a very creative force, but we also know creativity is destructive. So here is the tension between those conservative folks who want to preserve what they recognize as a functional society, and I'm saying as they observe it, because when I talk to people about the 50s, I lived with them. They were romantic, you know. They were, you know, if you were gay, you got beaten up. If you were feminist, you got slagged. If you know those kind of quotations, the relationships between the various races. So no, they weren't great times, but they did have qualities. How do we preserve those qualities, and how do we get them also into a global level? Those are two realities. They're not compatible. People in Indiana, for example, are not interested in, you know, looking at the market in Southeast Asia for the production of such and such a product. So we get this polarization, and those people who are very conservative are fearful and angry about globalization because it is destroying the fabric of their culture. And I refer to that great book called Hillbilly Elegy. I invite you to read. It came out a couple of years ago. And, you know, from somebody who's grown up in the Midwest, I really understood, you know, how all of this is an assault on values and how people then uh, re- return to or retract to imagined points of view. Anyway, great book. So we can't integrate these two systems. But yet, if we could find a way of living in both those realities simultaneously, the value of the local, the connection that occurs at that kind of social thing, how these give us a feeling of belonging and connection and purpose. And how do we combine that with a world economy, a world production, the insecurities of being exposed to a world community? Um, and that's where we are. We're in this crux. And you can see how people are wanting to retreat from globalization for all kinds of reasons. But as I understand it, I'm not an economist, but the ones that I do respect and read um, say retreat from globalization is going to be not only financially harmful but culturally harmful. We lose the kind of diversities that we have. We lose the sort of edge that you get when you're truly in competition. And so I'm not a socialist in the classic sense, you know, but I do appreciate a society that takes care of its members. And at the same time, I do respect innovation, entrepreneurs, creative people, creating businesses. That's we need to support that. How do we do that together? How do we feel like a team that belongs together? Like an analogy, you know, and a large Italian family, several generations together having a meal. There's all the tensions in the family, and this is I'm speaking this as more metaphorical rather than an analogy. There's tension in this. You're sitting down at a meal together, and they're arguing with this and they're like that, and the meal goes on for a long period of time. I did research, and I found that there is very little gluten sensitivity in Italy. Why? Well, probably a lot of reasons, the microbiome in the gut, digestive function. But also, I think when you eat together, your digestive system is different. You sit at a meal with people and you talk and you eat, and the food is cooked by somebody who loves, as opposed to the mechanical process of eating we find ourselves today. Anyway, I just went segues off someplace like that. So, just in simple terms, our job, if we want to save the planet, if we want to save society, if we want to make a better place for our children, is to negotiate this new reality, to live in a place of contradiction and conflict peacefully, and to respect and admire each other. Anyway, that's enough ramblings at this point. So I want to thank you again for listening in, and I enjoy this. Gives me some purpose in this and my art. Oh, if you take a second here. This is one of my new drawings. I love art. I've come back to it after 50 years, and you could see, I mean, I'm not talking I'm a great artist, but you see, it's like, it's a place where I allow my imagination. It's sort of a follower of Andre Breton, I think it's pronounced. This is authenticism. I'm drawing my mind, and that school gave rise to Dadaism and abstract expressionism. I remember my art history. Well, that's a nice thing. When I went to university, we got an education. I didn't get a skill. So I wasn't able to get a job because I graduated from university because I didn't have any particular skill. I mean, I admired the engineering students because they always wandered around with these big leather things on their hip where they carried their slide rule. You remember that? No, I mean, I got an education. My major was theater arts, liberal arts, minor in Scandinavian literature. I mean, how obscure this is. I mean, but I got to learn about things, and I think we need to return to that. Not train our children to be automatons to repeat some process that can be soon probably managed by artificial intelligence, but to support creativity. Machines will never be creative. Anyway, that's enough for that. Thank you very much.